The letter arrived on a Friday afternoon, and Patricia Okafor almost didn't open it. It had been 4 months since her father's funeral, and she was still moving through each day with the particular heaviness that grief leaves behind, the kind that doesn't announce itself loudly, but sits on your chest from the moment you wake up. She had been sorting through his mail out of habit, the way she had done for the last 3 years while managing his affairs, and she almost set the envelope aside with the rest of the bills and insurance notices she no longer needed to worry about. But something made her open it. It was from a probate court. Her father's estate had been filed, and the filing listed a will that Patricia had never seen, signed 14 months before her father died, at a time when his doctors had documented in writing that he was showing significant signs of cognitive decline. That will left everything to his second wife, Donna. Patricia's name did not appear anywhere in it. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Patricia Okafor, a 54-year-old high school principal, a daughter who had given years of her life caring for a man she loved deeply, and what she uncovered when she started asking questions that nobody wanted her to ask. This is a story about elder financial abuse, about the people who prey on the vulnerable and count on families being too grief-stricken and too trusting to look closely, and about what happens when one woman decides that love, real love, the kind that means showing up, demands that you fight even when fighting is the last thing you have energy for. Patricia grew up in a close-knit family in a mid-sized city in North Carolina. Her father, James, had worked for 32 years as a high school history teacher, which was, as Patricia liked to say, the reason she had become a principal. She had watched him stand in front of classrooms her entire childhood, patient and passionate, turning history into something that felt alive. And she had followed him into education the way children sometimes follow parents into the things they love most. James had been married to Patricia's mother, Ruth, for 27 years, before Ruth died of cancer when Patricia was 31. The years that followed were hard for him. He was not a man built for solitude. He needed someone to talk to, someone to share meals with, someone to sit beside in the evenings. 3 years after Ruth's death, he met Donna at a church event. Donna was 10 years younger than James, recently divorced with grown children of her own who lived out of state. She was lively and warm, and she made James laugh in a way Patricia hadn't heard in years. They married 18 months after they met. Patricia was happy for him. She genuinely was. She liked Donna well enough in those early years, found her a little loud, a little materialistic, but fundamentally harmless. She visited when she could, called regularly, and told herself that her father's happiness was what mattered. For the first 6 years of the marriage, things were peaceful. Then James turned 78, and things began to change. It started with small things. He would repeat the same story twice in the same conversation, something he had never done. He would lose track of what day it was, what month, occasionally what year. He would call Patricia by her mother's name, Ruth, and then catch himself and apologize with a confused little laugh that broke her heart a little more each time she heard it. Patricia started driving down from her home in Virginia more frequently, every other weekend at first, then every weekend. She coordinated his medical appointments, managed his medications, communicated with his doctors, handled his banking when Donna said it had become too much for her to keep up with. His diagnosis came back as moderate-stage Alzheimer's disease. The neurologist told Patricia, quietly and carefully, that her father would likely continue to decline over the next 2 to 4 years. She should be thinking about care options, about legal arrangements, about making sure his wishes were documented while he still had enough clarity to express them. Patricia immediately asked about his existing will. James told her that his will had been drawn up 12 years ago when Ruth was still alive, and that it had been updated after Ruth's death to divide his estate equally between Patricia and a charitable foundation he had always supported. He told her the paperwork was in the filing cabinet in his office. When Patricia went to look for it, Donna told her James had reorganized his files and that she wasn't sure where that particular document was. Patricia did not think much of it at the time. She made a note to look again on her next visit. She never found it. Over the months that followed, Patricia noticed a shift in the household that she struggled at first to articulate. Donna became less available when Patricia called. Visits that Patricia had always arranged directly with her father began requiring coordination with Donna first. On 2 occasions, Patricia arrived at the house to find that Donna had taken James on an errand and had not mentioned the visit in advance, something that had never happened before. There was a man who began appearing occasionally at the house. Donna introduced him as her cousin. He was involved in real estate, she said, and was helping them look into some financial planning options. Patricia asked what kind of financial planning, and Donna said it was nothing Patricia needed to worry about. Patricia worried. She raised her concerns with her father's primary care physician, who told Patricia that in his professional opinion, James no longer had the cognitive capacity to make complex financial decisions, and that any significant legal or financial actions taken during this period would be questionable on the grounds of competency. He said this gently but clearly, and he offered to put it in writing. Patricia asked him to do exactly that. She also contacted an elder law attorney named Susan Park, who specialized in cases involving elder financial abuse and estate disputes. Patricia described what she had observed: the missing will, Donna's cousin with the financial planning background, the barriers being placed between Patricia and her father. Susan listened carefully and told her something that stayed with her. She said, "Elder financial abuse is almost always an inside job." She said the perpetrators are almost always people the victim trusts. And she said the window for protecting a vulnerable person legally is almost always narrower than families expect. She told Patricia that if something was being planned, it had probably already begun. Patricia drove back to Virginia that evening and did not sleep. She began from that point to document everything, every visit, every phone call, every observation, dated and noted in a composition notebook she kept locked in her car. Every time Donna deflected a question, every time the cousin appeared, every time her father said something that suggested he did not fully understand what was happening around him. She was a principal. She had run a school for 11 years. She understood paper trails. She understood that the details people overlooked in the moment were the details that mattered most later. For 8 months, she documented. Then her father died quietly, in his sleep, on a Tuesday in March. And 4 months after that, the letter arrived. The will that Donna had filed with the probate court had been executed 14 months before James died, during the precise period his neurologist had documented as a time of significant cognitive decline. It was drafted by an attorney Patricia had never heard of, signed by James, and witnessed by 2 people neither Patricia nor anyone in her extended family recognized, and notarized the same day it was signed. The estate it disposed of was substantial. The house, which James and Ruth had bought together decades ago and paid off entirely, was worth $380,000. There were retirement accounts, there were savings, there was a small rental property James had purchased in his 60s as a supplement to his pension. The total value of everything came to just over $600,000. Under the new will, 100% of it went to Donna. Patricia called Susan Park that evening. Susan told her they had grounds to contest the will on 2 arguments. The first was lack of testamentary capacity, the legal standard for whether a person had sufficient mental clarity to understand what they were signing at the time they signed it. The second was undue influence, the legal argument that Donna had used her position of power over a vulnerable man to pressure or manipulate him into changing his will in her favor. Both were provable, Susan believed, if the documentation was there. Patricia opened the composition notebook she had kept locked in her car for 8 months. The documentation was there. The neurologist's written assessment of James' cognitive state 14 months before his death was there. His medical records, which Patricia had been copied on as his healthcare proxy, documented a significant decline in memory and executive function precisely during the period the new will was signed. The neurologist confirmed in a written declaration that in his professional opinion, James had lacked testamentary competency at the time the challenged will was executed. The elder law attorney Susan brought in to examine the signing circumstances found several troubling irregularities. The attorney who had drafted the will had no prior relationship with James. The witnesses were identified as employees of that same attorney's office, not independent community members, as was standard practice. The will was executed on a weekday afternoon during a window of time Patricia was able to confirm, through her own dated visit records, that Donna had kept Patricia away from the house on the stated pretext of a medical appointment that, according to James' actual medical records, had not taken place that day. That detail was significant. Susan explained that in undue influence cases, one of the key patterns courts look for is isolation, the deliberate removal of the